Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn about RainbowKit and integrating RainbowKit into a React or Next.js application you might have. If you're not familiar with RainbowKit, it's a beautiful little React library by the team at Rainbow Wallet. It's a great way to sort of integrate wallet connection into your Web3 application. It supports pretty much all EVM chains, so Ethereum, Mainnet, Polygon, BNB, and so on. It looks really beautiful. So this is what the UI looks like, and it's being used by some of the top teams and the top projects in this space. It's also very customizable. You can like change the size of the modal. It's a light mode, dark mode, midnight mode, and sort of have like different colored accents and so on. So it's generally just a really easy to use and really sort of beautiful way to integrate wallet connection to your dApp. So if this is a new project you're starting out, you can just use their quick start guide and just create a Next.js application using their template, which comes with all the code already there. So RainbowKit is already integrated and everything. For this video, we're going to do more of a manual setup where I'm going to assume you guys have a pre-existing React app or a pre-existing Next.js app, and you now want to add Rainbow to your application. So I'm going to create a new folder on my computer, name it RainbowKit tutorial, name it whatever you want. And the first thing I'm going to do is we will start off by creating a new Next.js app. The steps are pretty much the exact same if you're using React, but I just like using Next. So I'm going to create a Next app, and the command for that is yarn create next-app. And the dot specifies to create it in the current directory. You could also use npm for it, something like npm init next app or create next app or something like that. You can find that on the Next.js documentation. While this sets up our Next.js project, one thing to notice is that RainbowKit comes with, you also need to install two other libraries, Wagmi and ethers. So Wagmi is this other React library that provides hooks for Ethereum. So a bunch of great useful hooks, things like use account, balance, use contract, use ENS name, ENS address, and just a lot of different hooks that just make developing Web3 applications in React or Next.js much simpler. So you don't have to write a lot of your own code. You just use these hooks wherever you want. So RainbowKit relies on Wagmi, and Wagmi further requires ethers as a way to like communicate with the blockchain, and their hooks are created using ethers. And also ethers can be useful in case you're doing any custom logic somewhere that Wagmi doesn't already have a hook for. So now that this Next.js app is set up, we're going to install the required dependencies as listed here. So the RainbowKit dependency, Wagmi, and ethers. Since I'm using yarn, I'll do yarn add. You can do npm install if you set up the app using npm instead. This can take a while, so we'll be back once this is done. All right, so this is done now. I'm going to open this up in VS Code and also start the development server for Next.js so we can look at the website. It will start off with just the basic Next.js template. Cool. So if we open this link over here, it's just the default sort of Next.js landing page that it comes with. There we go. So it just says welcome to Next.js, yada yada yada, links you to the documentation and so on. So what we're gonna do is we need to do some configuration and some setup before we can start using RainbowKit. So head on over into your _app.js file. If you're using React, this would just be app.js. If you're doing this with TypeScript, it'll be app.ts or tsx respectively. So over here, we need to import a few things. Firstly, we need to import the CSS styles that Rainbow ships with. So we're going to do import rainbowme/rainbowkit/styles.css. So our entire application has access to that CSS. Then we need to configure a few different things. We need to configure the different chains we are going to support. We need to configure the connectors, which is just Wagmi terminology for how you like connect to these chains, what wallets are usable, and so on. So we're going to connectors for these chains. And lastly, we need to configure a Wagmi client, which is an instance of the Wagmi library that will be used throughout your application. Remember that Rainbow uses Wagmi for everything. RainbowKit is mainly a UI library, and all the underlying logic is it relies on Wagmi to take care of that. So for the chains we are going to support, you can add however many you want. For this example, let's just go with the Ethereum mainnet and the Gurley testnet. So you get the chains and provider object from this function called configure chains that ships with Wagmi. It should automatically import, but if it doesn't, you can look at my imports up top. We call this function configure chains, and it takes in 2 arguments. The first argument is an array of the different networks you want to support, and the second argument is an array of providers, so RPC URLs for those chains. It comes with a lot of things built in, so you don't need to like manually do a lot. We can just do chain, import chain from Wagmi, chain.mainnet, and then chain.gurley, right? So that's configured that we want support for these 2 chains. And for the providers now, you can set up a variety of different providers. You can create like an Alchemy provider. It's not recognizing the imports. I'm just going to import it manually. You can import an Alchemy provider from Wagmi /providers/Alchemy, right? You can set up an Alchemy provider, and this will take an argument for an API key. You can put in your Alchemy key here. Similarly, it also supports other popular RPC networks. You can also do, instead of just the Alchemy provider, you can also do Infura provider. Again, it doesn't automatically recognize it, my browser, but basically kind of the same thing. Import it from Wagmi/provider/Infura, and you can do Infura provider, and this also works similarly. You put in your Infura key here, and also you just have access to a public provider as well. That is just a public RPC that you don't need any API keys for. It's just publicly RPC. I don't recommend using this in production because you might get rate limited since it's a public endpoint and it's not something that only you have access to. So public endpoints can be slow and can hit rate limits, but for now we're just going to use the public provider, and I'll get rid of these 2. All right, so we've configured the chains and the providers for those chains. The second thing we need to do is set up the connectors for this. So we're gonna do const connectors equals, and Rainbow comes with this function called get default wallets that, given the chains you want to support, it can figure out the most popular wallets that people use for those chains and then just return you the generated connectors. And for app name, I'm just gonna do RainbowKit tutorial. You can do what you want. Depending on the wallet, it sometimes shows the app name during the wallet connection part. For example, if somebody's using the Coinbase wallet, it will display the name of the application the user is trying to connect to. So that's where this app name goes. And the second thing it wants the chains that you configured it for. Once you set up the connectors, the last thing to do is setting up a Wagmi client. So this is like the main meat. So you create client. It's a function from Wagmi. Call create client, and it takes in a few things. It takes in auto connect. Do you want the user's wallet to automatically be connected if they connected at some point in the past, or do you want them to manually have to click the button every single time? We'll set it to true. Then it takes the connectors that you specified, and it takes the provider that you specified. With this configuration out of the way, we need to wrap our application with a Wagmi client configuration and a RainbowKit provider. So by default, Next.js just returns component in the app.js file. We're going to wrap this component with a few providers. So add some parentheses around it and create a JSX tree out of it. So here, first thing we need to do is give it Wagmi config provider, and this will take in the Wagmi client we created, right? I'll move this component in there. And the second thing it needs the RainbowKit provider. And this just takes the different chains that you want to support. All right. Now your rest of your application has access to the sort of RainbowKit and the Wagmi configuration, and you can now use the Wagmi hooks. You can display the RainbowKit connect wallet button wherever you want, and so on and so forth. It's a one-time setup. And now that this is done, let's head over to index.js, which is the landing page for our application right now. We're going to get rid of everything, all the default stuff from here, the main landing page that it came with. Delete all of that, and instead we're just going to return connect button. This is the component that RainbowKit comes with, the connect wallet button. And once we have this, let's open up our browser again, and you'll see it just connected my wallet because I connected here before, but I can disconnect from here, and this is what the connect wallet button looks like. If I go back, click connect, asks me what wallet I want to connect with. These are the default wallets. Remember, we set it up to use some default wallets. So these are the default wallets it figured that people use most commonly for the Ethereum mainnet and the Gurley testnet. You can also add support for more because RainbowKit does support a bunch of other wallets like Ledger and Trust Wallet and Argent and whatnot. You can add support for them individually if you want. And there is a way to like set up a custom wallet lists. You can import individual wallets from this file and then add like the various wallets you want when you're setting up the connectors. But for the default wallets, you get MetaMask, Rainbow, Coinbase Wallet, and WalletConnect out of the box. And WalletConnect basically gives you access to any mobile wallet. But yeah, and then if you click MetaMask, my account is already connected, so it just shows up like that over there. But if I disconnect my MetaMask from the website, it will work kind of as expected. So you click Connect Wallet, MetaMask, opens up MetaMask, and then I can hit connect as usual, right? The other cool thing is, since we added support for the Ethereum mainnet and the Gurley testnet, I can switch between those two networks, right? If I click Gurley, it's going to automatically pop open my wallet and ask me to switch the chain from Ethereum mainnet to Gurley testnet. I can switch that. Now it displays the different balance and so on. Also, if my wallet is set to an unsupported chain, like for example, if I change this to, let's say, the Sepolia network instead, you'll see the button automatically changes to being wrong network. And if I click on it, I'll say wrong network detected, please switch or disconnect. And you can like click on like Gurley, and it'll automatically ask me to change the network back to Gurley. Amazing. So with this out of the way, we can do a little bit of customization here if we want. We can kind of change the size of the connect modal and things like that. We can change how much information you want to display over here. So basically, we can go into the connect button, and in here, it takes in a few properties. You can pass it, for example, a label if you want to change the text on there. Let's say you want this to be Connect Web3 instead of Connect Wallet. And if I disconnect, we'll say the button now says Connect Web3. So you can play around with that. You can also change the account status. So you can have the account either show up as an address, like it was doing for me. So show up like this with just the address, or you can show just the avatar, or you can show the full version, which is both the avatar and the address. And you can change things like you can set like a chain status. Is like, do you want to show the entire like the current chain that you're on along with the name and everything, or do you want to only show the icon of that chain, or do you want to only show the name of that chain, or do you want to not show it at all, right? And it just hides it. So there's a few different things you can do. You can kind of like hide balance. You can say like show balance is false, and then it doesn't show the person's balance, just the address. So this is all cool. Now, how do we, after the wallet is connected, how do we actually use different values? So that is stepping more into the realm of Wagmi and away from RainbowKit. This is all that RainbowKit basically does right out of the box. It's just a library to help you connect wallets. Going into Wagmi, I'm going to give you one simple example. The rest you can find in Wagmi docs. Maybe there's a separate video about Wagmi we make in the future. But basically, you can do something like const, like if you look at this use account documentation here, you can do const address equals use account. And we can say, and here, I'll just return a div. And we'll say that if the address is set, then we'll return a p tag with my address is address, right? And if we go back to the page here, it now shows my full address. And there we go. Now, when you do this, there's a high chance you will run into this error. This is why I refreshed the page. I wanted to show you this error. This is an issue with how Wagmi works, and there's not a lot of good documentation on how to fix this, so I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you how to fix this. Basically, it's an hydration error that's happening in React. It's an error that happens ever since React 18 came out. It doesn't mean that error didn't happen before React 18. It always used to happen, but it was a warning back then, but too many people were ignoring that warning, so they bumped it up to be an error instead that will not let you write code that leads to hydration errors, because this has the potential of making your app really slow. So what this actually means is that it's saying that the hydration failed because the initial UI did not match what was rendered on the server. And you'll see this a lot with Next.js, since Next.js now uses the new React version 18. And when you do hooks like this, you'll probably come across it. So in a nutshell, what is actually happening is Wagmi tries to connect to, well, Wagmi a few layers down, it's reading things from the window.ethereum object, right? Wallets like MetaMask and whatever, they inject an Ethereum object into the global JavaScript DOM, window.ethereum. Wagmi tries to use it, but because of how React works and because of how Next.js works, and because we have this as like in part of the render, we have this as the JSX that's being returned, and we're using the value of address over here. When the page is first rendered, it doesn't have access to the window object, doesn't have access to the window and document object, so it cannot access window.ethereum. And it tries to render it, but then by the time it actually does render it, the component has mounted, and now it does have access to it, and then this value changes. It was null before, it changes to something else, and then it just shows up as a hydration error because what it thought the initial UI was going to be is not what the initial UI ended up being. The way to fix this is I suggest you create a custom hook. So I'm going to create a folder named hooks in my application, and we're going to name it useIsMounted.js, right? And we're going to create a really simple React hook over here. So we're basically going to do a function, export function useIsMounted, and we'll just create a state variable here, mounted, and set mounted, which starts off with a value of false. And then we'll create a use effect that will run once when the page first loads by giving it an empty dependency array. And we'll say set mounted is true. And then we just return the value of mounted. So basically what's happening is we're keeping a state variable that starts off as false, and it is set to true once the component has done mounting. And the way that happens is the use effect only runs after the component has been mounted. So we're guaranteed that this code only runs after the component has mounted. So once we have that guarantee, we update the value of this variable to be true, and then we return this value. And in all of the other parts of your project where you want to use Wagmi hooks, Just also just check, just get the value of use is mounted, right? And render this part if and only if it has been mounted right now. So we'll wrap this up with, we do this code if it has been mounted, then show the address, otherwise just return null. So this code only runs when the component has been mounted. If it is mounted, then it checks if the address exists, then add this line, otherwise just return null. Now if we save this, we go back to the app, we need to refresh it to see if this actually did anything. So refresh it and see this time we didn't get the hydration error. So that's how you fix the hydration error. Just create a use as mounted hook and make sure any values you're using from any of the Wagmi hooks, only include them as part of your render after you've checked if the component has mounted or not. With that in mind, thank you so much. This has been RainbowKit, Wagmi, and a really common problem people have been facing these days. I hope this tutorial helps you out, and for more, check out Learn Web 3, and I'll see you next time.